So here we have Deluxe Class Jolt from the Revenge of the Fallen line. As you may be able to read in the back here, Jolt's alt mode is a Chevy Volt. Jolt the Volt. Get it? It rhymes. It also rolls. Moving on. His alt mode really isn't that bad. Hell, I'd definitely say that I like it, but it might just be because of this pretty blue color. It's almost to the point where it's a wash of blue. It's got just enough paint apps applied to break up the blue and make it very appealing to look at. I know that it wouldn't be screen accurate, but I think a nice silver pinstripe or something along the sides would give it that little something extra. Granted, I'm not sure it would look good on the real-life car, so just never mind. Also, I'm not a fan of how the new electrostatic Jolt turned out, so that just might be proof that this is perfect the way it is. I do have another gripe or two, however. Firstly, it's got a few too many of these unsightly panel lines, but that's pretty easy to forgive, because it transforms into a robot. And robots are awesome. Secondly, these clear plastic windows do not do it any favors. Light sneaks in too easily and illuminates all this robot junk, even though the plastic's fogged. Overall, there's just a lot of empty space in there, but that's a minor gripe. It's very screen accurate and pleasant to look at. What more could you want? One unusually painless transformation for the movie line later, we have Jolt, the clear-chested bot. I mean, really, translucent blue plastic chest? What toy line is this? Did I pick up an Energon toy by mistake? He's also got the classic red Autobot symbol on the chest that my camera won't focus on, but where's the Movieverse one? Don't get me wrong though, the overall look of this figure is still quite Bayformer, so you couldn't mistake it if you tried. I do like this head sculpt, it gives him kind of a curious look. Too bad it hardly moves on this stupidly limited ball joint. That seems to be an overall problem with this figure. His posability is quite awkward. Most of it is there, it just moves oddly or is highly hindered. The shoulders have a hinge here, connected to a fairly free ball joint. Rotate 360 degrees just below the shoulder. 90-degree elbows with loads of extra kibble on there. 360 waist. Bonus! But that's for the mostly rubbish and totally terrible Mech-Alive gimmick. There's a spinning gear in there, thus the translucent chest. Fairly free ball-jointed hip. Very slight swivel above the knee, but we're talking like 15 degrees. It's useless. 90-degree knees. Hinge ankle. Hinged midfoot. Ball-jointed toes. So he's got movement, it's just sort of challenging to find any good-looking poses. That might be helped with a decent swivel in his hips. He just tends to look awkward unless he's standing still, and in that situation, I find his overall shape to be very pleasing, and generally, I like the way this bot looks. Unfortunately, he's Kibble City. I already told you about these arms, but there's also this backpack, and these silly-looking lower legs. I should definitely point out that you can move some of this kibble around. Like these, for example. They can come out, or they can come down. Throw on a ball joint back there. And as I said, the toes are in a ball joint, so they can go this way, or that way. And you can futz around with this backpack a little bit, you know, do whatever you like. It's also worth noting that this shoulder joint doesn't really peg in, so that can flop around a little bit. He does have his electro whips. You just turn on these little knobs on both hands, and they'll pop right out. Same thing over here, or you could just do it manually. However, these whips look more like short blades, so that's kind of disappointing. This toy could have gone a long way if it just had a cool pair of whips instead of these piddly little blade things. And his hands are these odd claws, so they can't hold any cooler weapons. Final thoughts? Overall, this isn't quite the Jolt I had in mind when I first heard about this toy. I find him to be hard to pose, not very fun to play with, and slightly disappointing. The alt mode looks great, and the bot looks good while static, but the lack of action, the lack of cool weapons, and the lack of posability really drag it down. He does fit in well with the other movie Autobots, and he rounds off the team nicely, so I'm glad I have him. I just find it hard to recommend him to people who are on the fence. I'm certainly not saying to stay away from him. I do like him, and I'd never get rid of him. Just know what you're getting into with this little guy. I also wouldn't pay more than about $8 for him, but that's just my opinion. So that's Jolt. He's fun to look at and fun to transform, but a little more designer love would have gone a long way. As always, thanks for checking out my reviews. Stick around, I've always got more good stuff coming up.